Have you hugged a Reitman? Wagered a podcast bet? Toasted to friends at Clover Pint? Prove it all to your friends with Crossword merch available now in the gift shop. T-shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, and a whole lot more. Your purchase supports the show and keeps us running. Go to Ghostbusters HQ/shop to get yours today. I like that shirt, friend.
All right. I have been looking forward to this for years, literally years, because we haven't spoken since you went to Calgary, and it seems like it's been a lifetime ago. But our guest here on the podcast today is Arjen Tuiten, extremely a talented painter, sculptor. You've worked with Stan Winston, you've worked with Rick Baker, Dick Smith, you have designed Hellboys, Terminators, zombies, the whole nine. And turned Angelina Jolie into Maleficent. But most importantly, you created the creatures for Ghostbusters Afterlife, practical creatures for Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is so much fun to say. But first of all, thanks for doing this, Arian. I know it's a day off for you. You're deep in production on your next project, and really appreciate you taking the time.
No, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. Yeah.
So let's just start. How did you get into prosthetics and makeup and creatures, and what were the origins of your love for this particular form of art?
That started a long time ago when I was a kid. And in most cases, with any effects makeup artist, you'll find that it started in their childhood. And with me, that's no different. Just being kind of an outcast and to the rest of this class, and just being kind of living in my own little world, really, and being fascinated with anything film and horror and prosthetics. And it grew very early on. I think I was 9 when I knew. And being an 80s kid, obviously, that decade influenced me heavily, looking back. Films like Ghostbusters and The Goonies and Poltergeist and you name it. So that obviously is a very heavy influences on me. So I love that aesthetic. So it all came from that time, really. It started very young. Yeah.
So knowing that Ghostbusters and the creature designs that we all grew up with in the 80s are so heavily imprinted in your brain, and maybe have inspired you to do your art and to create your creatures. I mean, how do you get involved in Ghostbusters Afterlife? I mean, first of all, what is the first conversation that you have with the team? But also, what's your reaction to that? Oh, a new Ghostbusters film?
Yeah. It's funny because I actually met with the team of the 2016 film as well. I got a call from the Reitman office at the time. Yes. And I remember meeting with Paul and everybody there. And I ended up not doing the show. And then skipping to, I believe it was early 2019, January or something. And I heard about that Jason was doing a new one. And I knew somebody that knew him. And we set up a meeting. I went to Sony and met with Jason, and within the first 10 minutes, we just instantly hit it off. He's only like 2 or 3 years older than I am. Yeah. I guess we're kind of the same age range. And he knew exactly what I was talking about, and the other way around. And I think a week later, he came by my shop just to kind of check the place out. And we talked about some ideas, and it just went very fast from that. I think 2 weeks later, I got the call, and I got Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, I mean, that was it.
And so I'm sure that first conversation that you had with him, that's when he said, I want to use the techniques that they used in '84. I want to make as much practically so we can shoot it in camera. I mean,
yes.
That to you has to be a dream, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I knew when he was looking at his stuff, and I've seen his films. Obviously, I'm familiar with his movies, and but seeing his little teaser of the actual lettering and the logo coming in, that he shot that practically with the backlight and the smoke, I knew he was gonna do this at least to a lot of levels, do this right, and you could just tell. And I was just excited, and he understood more than anybody, I think, the aesthetic of the first one, and coming from a practical puppet and makeup effects side, I immediately got that, of course. So yeah, we just instantly hit it off, as I said. Yeah.
It seemed like he had studied, I mean, how the creatures were made, the lenses, and at what focal distances they were shooting things. I mean, just reverse engineering. Even talking to the filmmakers themselves, you know, having Richard Edlund and John Bruno and John DeCure Jr. on speed dial to just ask them questions. So one of the biggest projects that you had to do was the Terror Dog, the physical Terror Dog. What were some of the first steps in that process? I mean, what did you have in terms of reference material that you could be working with?
Well, it's funny because I was never asked to do the Terror Dogs in the beginning. It was only ever the makeup side of things, and maybe some puppets and arms and again, after I got the show, they called 2 weeks later again. They said, you know, would you be willing to do the Terror Dogs as well? We can't. I'm like, of course. So
just play it cool, Arian. Just maybe I'll think about it. Can I have the night?
Yeah. Well, being a fan of the first one, obviously, I really just went back to as much as I could find of what Randy Cook had done. And I always loved that design. And Sony actually gave me access to some of the never before seen stills from that time. And I mean, there's quite a bit of reference of the actual sculpture. So for us, it was more the excitement. At one point, they were talking about, you know, just changing him in design. They came by my shop, I remember, and which is a very common thing with films, unfortunately, especially follow-ups and sequels, where they have to change things. And I felt strongly that was a mistake. And and I just put my foot down, and I'm like, we cannot change the Terror Dog. It's an iconic character. It will be the same as E.T. coming back with ears, or you mean?
Oh, can you imagine? Oh my God.
Yeah, it's just, and I get it because they're all artists, and I'm one, so I understand it. But I also know, as a Ghostbusters fans first, to not mess with that one. And Jason has later thanked me several times, for that.
I'm glad you stood your ground. Yeah, that's it. Because it's when you're watching the film on screen, it is as if they took that puppet and the Phil Tippett miniature stop motion and put it into this. I mean, it's a 1-to-1 recreation, and it looks and it feels perfect.
Well, thank you.
But if there were things that were changed that you were kind of bumping on, I think that would take people out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so we mainly updated a few little things, and for today's camera standards, and that was it really. Probably the animatronics within are a little bit more refined.
So did you start with, because again, you're such an amazing sculptor. I see your stuff on Instagram and I'm just blown away, especially facial life captures. But did you start with a scale miniature that you did, or did you start with the 1-to-1? Because that was the most impressive, was that insanely giant life-size Terror Dog that you walk in your shop and see.
Yeah, no, we started with a maquette, actually, and it was sculpted by Steve Koch, a very talented sculptor. And we followed everything that's, again, the reference of Randy Cook. And once we had that done and it was approved, nowadays we could probably scan it and mill one out in foam, as the process is a lot faster and very accurate.
Sure.
But I felt also for my crew, this was such a special moment, and to capture that handcrafted feel within the creatures, I felt let's just hand sculpt it. In other words, we'll photograph the maquette, we'll project it on the wall 2 to 4 times the size, and we'll make an armature, and we'll get 600 pounds of wet clay, and we're actually going to sculpt it like they did back then.
Wow.
And we did, and we had the best 2 weeks just sculpting that. And I told the crew, this is, including everything else, all the other stuff, this is going to be a summer you're going to remember. And it was just going to be something special. We all knew, and we just wanted to get it right.
How big was your team? Who were the people that were on your team that were working there?
The big sculpture was led by Norman Cabrera, very talented creature effects artist, and Tanner White and Danny Wagner all sculpted on that, Brian Ray. And I kind of let them spearhead that. And then because I had 44 people in total, including makeup artists and wig makers and mold make. I mean, it's a lot of people, not all at the same time. They came through in sections. And so I had a lot on my plate. As much as I want to be involved, and I was, but I had great people on certain things. So yeah,
I would encourage everybody out there. Don't do this if you're driving. Pull over first, but go back and listen to the names that Arian just said and look at their credits, because they've worked on every creature that you love. I mean, Norman's worked on, I don't even want to go because his IMDb is like a laundry list.
Yes. Yeah.
You had the pros, the best of the best working on this project. So you mentioned you had to change a few things for modern cameras. I would imagine you're working on this one-to-one sculpture, one-to-one, just it's there, and then you're going to have to pour molds and pull the molds and create the foam latex version of it. At what point does Jason or Eric Steelberg or somebody say, hey, Arian, we're going to shoot this in a Walmart that has the most unforgiving fluorescent lights humanly possible?
Right.
Does that change your process? Because you're probably making all of these nuanced details in the sculpture, knowing that it's going to be in like a cool, dark, spooky lit, and then all of a sudden you're going to be in this flat lit Walmart. What does that change too?
Well, not a whole lot. In other words, I had seen the storyboards and I knew we were going to be in a grocery store, so we were prepared for that. But I think nowadays we're so trained to do that anyway, because we know not everything's being told to us in pre-production, so we're kind of prepared to do that. But it's we just wanted to keep the design the same but update it in detail, including the eyes and the inner mouth work, the teeth, even the horns. They're for example slushed in 3 different urethanes just so it would catch the light a certain way, so there's a certain translucency in it, so it doesn't look fake. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but and then the paint job, obviously, which is if you see the original one, you only ever see him in the dark, and that was different in this one, especially in the Walmart. So but we kept the colors the same as he was in 1984. However, people might remember him darker. But in reality, the paint job was actually like a dark brown with a gray on top. But through the process of film, even back then, some of that, of course, becomes darker. So that's different now, with all the digital cameras. So we had to kind of find the right balance for that.
That was the coolest part for me seeing that was being able to see that detail. You've got this amazingly detailed puppet on set, and the coloration that was kind of like a brownish hue that makes sense if you're watching this 1984 in the dark and they're up on the 55 Central Park West tower. Of course it's going to read more sort of like gray, purplish, but then as soon as you pour some light on it, you see what the actual color of the Terror Dog is. Yeah.
And again, we having gotten some of the stills from the vault from Sony, it clearly is a dark brown. And I later checked this with Randy Cook, who came by my shop not that long ago, and he's like, "Yeah, this was the color."
Wow.
So that was good. I was happy to hear that.
Are you are you using formulas for the foam rubber that were used in the 80s, or are you using a newer material to create the actual skin and everything of the puppet itself?
No, we just used foam latex, really. I didn't have an oven the size for the body, so it was ran by Bill Fesh, who was one of the best foam runners in the business, and they were excited, of course. And then we did run the heads, the feet, the inner mouths, and all the other foam stuff, including the minor ghost, at my shop. And but it was foam latex. This is also because of it's still one of the best skins for animatronics, and it's light. Because the Terror Dog itself weighed close to 450 to 500 pounds already.
Wow.
So if you can imagine, if you would put the skin around it and it's a solid silicone, it would weigh double that. And since we had to move it around on set on quite a fast pace, foam latex was just the answer. On top of that, it just looks 80s. It may sound strange, but I felt it was important to capture that texture. And foam latex just does that. And, so that was another reason.
So if it weighs that much and you're having to move it around set to get into position for the cameras and the blocking and whatever, how is it then puppeteered? Because I remember on the original film, it was like a raised platform and you had the puppeteers underneath, right? Did you have to do that on this show?
Yeah. The mechanics were designed by Bill Sturgeon, who actually worked on the first one at Boss Films. He was, I think, 21, 22.
Wow.
And he actually designed the mechanics for this one. And but it was all steel and laser cut and milled out, and we had a wheel rig underneath that we could lift them up on, and it took about 7 puppeteers to bring them to life. But you run nowadays, not everything is they're not expecting certain weight issues and stuff. So when we arrived on the first temple set, it was beautifully done, but I remember the temple was made out of like a certain foam type with structures of wood, and it wasn't strong enough to hold the terror dog, and nobody had thought about that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't reinforced overnight. So it's just a whole operation, and we ran into, I think there was even a special meeting that everybody had. It's like, no, we're really going back to this type of filmmaking. In other words, we've kind of forgotten what that's like to all meet and talk about, well, if the terror dog is this heavy, the set needs to be this strong. And it all connects. It's all, because films are just not done like this anymore, unfortunately. And so you could really tell, like, everybody had to kind of look, all right, like, we got to work together on this, Like,
well, yeah, they're probably not expecting the 700, 800-pound terror dog having to come on.
That's right. So it was just the weight of it was digging into the set. So that all had to be, but it was, it all got worked out.
What did you do in terms of the animatronics for the facial movements and the mouth snarling, the lip curl, like all of these things that, what was the complexity of that animatronic that was in there?
The head was operated by servos, but I think there was 21 servos in there, motors, and then there was some cable controlled, like the jaw, and actually the lip snarl is actually a cable controlled device. But everything moves from the nose to the eyelids to the brows, in and out, up and down, to the actual front snarl, to the lips. Those are done by servos, and yeah, I mean, it's a complex thing, but very much similar to the first one, but more refined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The expressions are identical. Again, it's like the snarl and the growl and everything. It's what you remember from Lewis's apartment, but again, it's just that little nuance. There's just that extra little level of detail that you added to it.
Yes, yeah, and I felt we needed that just to not make it comical, because nowadays you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, you don't want it to feel too Muppety, right?
Yes. So it needed to be a good combo.
Wow. So you mentioned doing an armature. Did you end up doing like a stop motion capture scale, like maquette or something that the visual effects team ended up using?
No. So Jason was adamant that the visual effects team, who were amazing, by the way, followed the design or sculpture that we had done. So they scanned our maquette, but also the big full-size terror dog, and used it for their model. So not the other way around. It had that handcrafted sculptural feel to it. And we did actually mold the maquette in such a way that, because there was talk at some point, well, maybe we can do this as a stop motion, where it's running up the stairs at the temple, and like Paul Rudd is changing into the terror dog. We do that as a stop motion thing, but I think we just simply ran out of time. I mean, it's a lot for Jason to carry all this other stuff, and it just, it takes months, and we started like 3 months or 4 months before, rather than 10.
Wow.
Because again, films just aren't done like this anymore.
Yeah.
So I think we just ran out of time.
But the end effect, hat tip to the visual effects team, because they ended up making it look like that Phil Tippett stop motion go, like the movement of the legs and the way he turns corners, and it all felt like it had been done stop motion.
Yeah, they were amazing to work with, and they also understood that this was not a visual effects film. This was, although there's a lot in it, it's just beautifully done, and my hats off to them as well. They were great to work with. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Terror Dog was just one tiny piece that you did. There is one thing, and it's kind of tough to talk about this now because it was always so hush-hush secretive, and I even in my questions wrote Old Farmer because it's just habit.
Sure.
But that big reveal, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it. I don't know why you haven't seen the film yet if you're listening to this. Hopefully you've seen it.
Yeah, what are you waiting for?
But so at the end of the film and at the very beginning of the film, we do see Egon Spengler recreated on celluloid. And one of the things that really struck me were these amazing concept paintings that you had done, right? Those were your paintings?
Yes.
How did that come to, did you guys talk about doing a prosthetic? Did you talk about all the different types of ways to recreate Harold Ramis on film?
Well, the idea was ever from the beginning. Jason is somebody that knows exactly what he wants when it comes to the storyboards. From very early on, we wanted to recreate him, but not show him in full light, because no matter how good the makeup is or the visual effects, it's not Harold.
Yeah.
And we weren't out to do that. We just wanted to create an essence to tell the story. And there was a stunt makeup on I forgot his name real quick, Rex Slosher, I believe. So we did a stunt makeup, which you see the actor wearing in the truck driving. And it's only ever going to be seen as the silhouette, the hair, and the nose, and the reflection of the glasses. And it was sculpted by Mitch Devane. And then I did some concepts. Jason asked me to do some concepts of what would Egon look like now. And I did a few, actually, where he had a bigger beard, smaller beard, different hair, where he's a little bit more slim. I remember the day Violet Ramis coming by the shop just to take a look at things. And I don't know if you were there or not.
I was. I wanted to lead you toward that because it is still one of the most poignant moments that I've ever captured behind the scenes, because you had done these amazing paintings of Harold and extrapolated what he could have looked like in 2019 at that point. And I just remember her standing, because you had them mounted on a wall, and she was standing there and just like in silence, kind of contemplating and looking. And
yes. Yeah, she got a little emotional, and for obvious reasons. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was correct, and where they felt good about it too. And I think that's actually the concept that visual effects later used for their illusion at the end. I mean, Jason kept on going back to that one concept.
Yeah,
I remember talking to Alessandro, the visual effects producer and supervisor on that. So yeah, he's like, that's the design. We keep going back to that.
Did you ever do a face sculpt or something for the VFX team to scan?
We did. Did they actually take one? They might have. I don't remember now if they took a head or not. We did do the sculpture on Egon sculpture, and as I said, it was more for stunts.
Yeah.
And then we supposed to do a hero makeup. Again, not to replicate Harold, but more to help tell the story and to help visual effects in that scene. But we just simply ran out of time, so that never happened. But visual effects did a great job with that, I thought.
Yeah, that's why I was because the deep fake technology I know gets you so far, but you're also aging him up, and you need to make him look as if he would have appeared.
Yes.
So it works. It works so well, and it doesn't, because it's such an emotional sequence. If there was just even the slightest bit of uncanny valley or something in there that you bumped on, it would pull you out of the emotional weight of the scene, and it doesn't. It's flawless. So hat tip to you and everybody that worked on it, because it's amazing. Everybody cries every time they watch it. Every single time.
I teared up reading the scripts. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing that you worked on was the minor ghost, which, I mean, I can imagine Steve Johnson coming up with something just like this too, where it's the puppeteer and it's got the kind of decaying corpse look. And at what point did you start designing this creature, and how did it evolve over the time that you were working on it in pre-production?
I already got the show. We were already starting on the Pterodog and other stuff. And I remember the moment in the shop where I'm like, I kind of, after having read the script, it kind of dawned on me that I was kind of missing a human form or a skeleton-like ghost that was equally as cool, or kind of like a shout out to the cabbie driver.
Yeah.
In 1984. And I emailed Jay. I think I called him or something. We were on the phone about something else. And I said, I kind of miss a skeleton like that. And he's like, you're absolutely right. We need to find a spot somewhere. He's like, what can you do? I'm like, well, let me see what I have laying around. And, we'll just build something. And we didn't know where he was going to appear. At some point, he was going to be in the school bus driver. And at some point, he was on the phone with the kids. Like, he panned back to the other side of the line, and he hangs up the phone. The kids don't realize they talked to a ghost.
Oh, what a gag!
There was a
that
bunch of
funny.
ideas. Yeah, there was a bunch of ideas coming around, and eventually Jason emailed me. He's like, "I got it. He's at Spinner's Diners. He's at the Roller Hop." And I'm like, perfect. So he's at the counter. He's like, yeah, he's drinking coffee. And he has a miner outfit because I figured it out. He's one of Evo Shandor's miners. I'm like, perfect. It's meant to be. I'm like, that's exactly what it needs to be. And Danny Glicker did an amazing costume outfit for him. There he was. He was an old miner. Yeah. And he is actually, this is a fun little fact probably for any fans who are out there who might know that the first ghost that ever shot for the 1984 film was the cabbie driver. And coincidentally, the miner ghost was the very first ghost, practical ghost we showed up with on set.
Oh, you're kidding.
So, yeah. So, coincidentally, that's a nice little tie-in.
Wow, what a wonderful symmetry. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, right? Yeah. I didn't realize it. I think I was on set that day. I was like, wait, we are shooting the first practical, and this is it. It's similar to 84, where he's the first guy up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think, if I remember right, Steve Johnson says that was his audition for Ghostbusters, is they said, you have a week to put together something for this taxi sequence. And he just really quick did it. And yeah. So what complexity of puppeteering on that one, because you've got the arm movement and the hand movement and the face is moving. What did it take to bring that one to life?
I kind of really went back to how Steve built his, really. And again, also just to capture that aesthetic. You can do a most beautiful sculpture, but it's just not going to look the same. So I basically took an old skeleton that I had laying around, and I mechanized him. Tanner White, one of my guys, mechanized the hands. And I think Bill Sturgeon did the eyes. And I built them out of just pieces of old foam latex that were left over from the Pterodog, like little skins and stuff, and sculpted a face for him. And it took 3 puppeteers on set. He has no legs, so he's sitting on the bar stool at the counter. And I was underneath the counter with another master puppeteer, actually, Ron Binion, and Richard Landon puppeteered the eyes off camera. And then his facial expressions from the brows to the mouth to the jaw, even though you don't see him opening up, are all cable controlled, which I was doing underneath the counter. And then Ron was doing the arms and the hands. He has neck movements going up and down and sideways, obviously.
And it was all wired too, wasn't it? It wasn't like you were on an RC unit. It was all the...
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the eyes were RC. Richard Landon puppeteered those through RC, but the rest was all cable controlled and wires. Yeah, because I figured if it breaks, I can fix it. You know?
That's true.
And it didn't need to be more than that to tell the story and to create the effect. We did mechanize both arms and hands and wrists. And I'm so glad I did, because I remember rehearsing. It was always going to be the left arm grabbing the coffee. But then the morning of, while we're rehearsing, Jason switched from the left arm to the right arm.
Director's prerogative, yeah.
Yeah. So we had to move that around real quick. But that was it, really. We shot one day with him, and he was wrapped. Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, I want to be mindful of time. I don't want to keep you much longer, but there's two or three more things I wanted to talk to you about.
Sure.
Evo Shandor, when I literally remember the last time I saw and talked to you, you were going to go do a live cast of J.K. Simmons, or he was coming to you, I want to say, to come and do his live cast. Tell me about that, because it seemed like it was just going to be prosthetic makeup, and then it seems like it turned into something completely different, right?
Yeah. Well, Jason did ask me to design his makeup. We actually never talked about prosthetics on that. It was more like, what would he look like? And I basically looked at hairstyles of that era. I did one concept design, only one, and he immediately signed off on it. That was it. There was no back and forth. There was no.
You're just that good. That's. I mean,
no, I wouldn't say that. It's just, I think we're just out of time, But yeah, Jason just trusted me, and I gave him the little beard, and I think I looked at Charles Dickens and stuff, anything from that time, and. What they were asking me about was actually a replica dummy of J.K. Simmons that lays in the coffin, because J.K. himself only filmed for maybe a day and a half, or 2 days, but they needed the body in the coffin a lot longer. I think we shot about 10 days with that in that mine, and of course he's not going to lay in that coffin for 10 days. So
maybe he needs a break. Why not?
Yeah,
J.K.'s a busy guy.
That's right. Now we created a dummy likeness of him, and we also used it for the splitting body. Remember the scene where, can I say the word?
Yes, this
Gozer.
is all we've spoiler alerted everything. Okay. Yes, I hope people have seen the movie before listening to this. Yeah,
Gozer grabs him by the face or head and splits him in half. That's actually a practical rig we built of JK. We built an upper body that splits in half. It was beautifully designed by Brian Ray, and we glued it up. It was only ever going to be seen of a silhouette, and with some slime on the inside, and we shot it, I believe, like twice.
I was going to say, how do you reset that? If it tears and it's got all the goo and stuff, is it a fast reset, or is it something where it's like, well, give me another day and I'll put it back together for you?
No, it literally took like 4 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just a very seamless puppet almost, that splits from the top open. And we just reset the slime on the inside, and that was it. And you would reveal Gozer's face, right? So, yeah. That was
sort of like the library ghost from the original film. You pull the rod and it transforms, and then it just goes back, and here you go. Let's do it again.
That's right. So that's another thing we did. And straight makeup, actually, I handed the makeup off to, or the wig pieces. The straight makeup did a beautiful job applying, because I was too busy on Gozer and the Terror Dog and everything else happening at once. So.
Yeah. So what did you have to do for Gozer? That's a makeup application. Was this a full body thing, or what?
Yeah. I mean, it turned into, Gozer was one of the hardest things of this show, actually. Even though that was one of the main things Jason asked me about. It took a while to find the actress who was going to play her, and the actual makeup took about 5.5 hours to 6 hours.
Wow.
Each day, which a lot of people probably don't realize, but it's a very complicated and complex thing that goes together. I mean, it's just a lot of, from beauty makeup to hair work to wigs to nails and to contact lenses. I mean, it just goes on and on. So,
sure.
It was played by Olivia Wilde, and we had a hard time with her mainly because, not to her fault, but she just wasn't available for any testing. Normally with a creature makeup like that, you're looking at least 2 full makeup tests, if not more, at a shop, just to kind of figure her out, what fits, what doesn't, what's the color, what's the lighting going to be. I mean, does her hair fit? I mean, it's a lot of work, and we never got that. We had to figure her out basically the morning of, and that was extremely hard. Yeah. Looking back, I mean, of course, there's things that I wanted to change and tweak, but that's the reality of filmmaking. In the end, I'm just happy that fans like her.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, again, keep her similar to 84, but give her a slight update. But yeah, she was tough to figure out. Amazing to work with. Olivia is absolutely incredible. But it was just a tough thing to figure out.
Yeah, that's a quick turnaround. And especially on something like that where you need to dial it in to look like a pre-existing character too.
Right. Yeah, the pressure was there. And I remember being in Calgary where you're just in the middle of nowhere. I don't have the luxury of my shop where I can maybe change something overnight. So that was tough. But I had a great team there in Canada helping me on that. And I just needed to figure it out. It was as simple as that. Yeah.
I mean, to me, again, it's one of those where that is Gozer. I can tell that that's Gozer, but yeah, maybe she's changed or evolved over the years, or she can choose any form she wants. So if she goes back to that form, maybe she's made a few upgrades.
Yeah, we never discussed if she would completely change, and the temple sets were already done where she has that haircut, and I did give her red eyes actually. I'm surprised to see in post-production they turned them black for some reason. It's starting to grow on me, but I would like to have her kept the red eyes personally.
How much of the bodysuit was costume and how much of it was application that you were having to do?
Actually, her upper torso to her midsection was a zip-on silicone, very thin silicone piece. And then her legs and her hands, her feet, everything was prosthetics, her neck going up. We actually had a forehead piece, but we opted on the morning of not to use that. So as I said, it was a bit of a scramble to find her. But I think in the final film and the way how she looks, my main thing was to make everybody happy and to make sure that the fans loved her. And, yeah.
It's cool. I mean, and she looks more dangerous in this film. I think the angular design to her body and stuff like that. Really,
the spikes were actually something that Olivia came up with. She's like, kind of nice if we have some little bit more spikes, just so it would tie in with the terror dog, and I like that a lot. And it gives her a sense of danger as well. So I kind of did a combo of spikes with and then bulbous forms from the original. So find that balance a little bit.
That's cool. I think a lot of people don't realize, of course, we talk about the terror dogs and the minor ghost and all of the creatures that you have to build from the ground up, but it's so difficult with a character like Gozer because, like you said, it's prosthetics, it's costume, it's hair, it's makeup, it's specialized contact lenses, it's specialized hair. Like everything is, you have to bring 4 departments together for this one character.
Yes. As I said, it was I had a great team, but I also had a terror dog on the same day, so I had to run around. Man. But my main focus, of course, that day was Olivia. And
busy times.
Yeah, it was hard.
So was there one thing, because I know you were a big advocate to try to do everything practically, and of course on this film you've got Muncher, you've got the mini puffs. Was there something that you had put forth to Jason that you insisted, like, we can do this in camera, and you tried and it didn't quite work, or you didn't have time to do it?
Well, Jason, of course, has mentioned the mini puffs. In his memory, it's probably a little different. We never physically built anything. What I did was I emailed Jason. I said, can we just at least build one practical one that bites Gooberson, the one that bites him? We should do that as a little puppet. And he loved it. It's just that we just simply ran out of time. They were already shooting the sequence, and it's so much work. And my idea was to have, because I know Billy Bryan very well, who built the original Stay Puft and also performed in it. I said, it'd be great if Bill can just come over to my shop and build that for 2 weeks.
Sure.
And it'd be a circle for him, to kind of finish on not that he's retired, but I knew it means a lot to him. And I
he
thought
loves that
perfect.
character. Yeah.
And I wanted him to do it and build a little foam latex one, that's fully animated. I think it would have been great. We could have totally done it. It's just time. And so that was one of the things. We did build the chair arms that grab Egon in the beginning of the film.
The sleeves?
Yes. I puppeteered one of them. But unfortunately, the cut is so fast that we don't see quite what they are. Because what we shot was quite violent, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Grabbing him and basically that's it. That's the end of Egon. And I wish we see a little bit more of that, perhaps in the director's cut. And when it comes to Muncher, we actually did do some concepts. They were very different. But Muncher's starting to grow on me. I think we didn't do Muncher. We did do some foam latex skins of Muncher, just so visual effects had something like, well, if this was a foam latex creature, a puppet, what would the texture be?
So that they could get that reference.
Yes, correct. We did give that to them. And I think the Bug Eye Ghost, I wish we had done that. I think we could have easily done a cool puppet.
Yeah.
But again, maybe that was decided later on,
It's so crazy. I mean, you could have never predicted what the pandemic was going to do to the film, and essentially giving you another year and a half in post-production on it. But yeah, if only you would have known then, like, oh, well, maybe we can have some time and we can put that in. And yeah.
Yes, I wish they had asked us for that one, where I feel as great as the visual effects are, I think that should have been a puppet, just for a quick moment. I mean, it wouldn't have been that hard.
Yeah, it would have still felt like those original two films in that montage sequence. But I mean, the counter argument to that too is, modern audiences love to see that sort of fluid CG-like creature. So it kind of gives them a little bit, and then you kind of go back and forth.
Sure. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah.
So last question for you, Arian. Thanks again for so much time here.
No, it's all good.
The end result, because I mentioned to you after I saw it at the cast and crew screening that they did here in LA, I was sitting next to Richard Edlund and John Bruno and glancing over them during the Terror Dog transformation sequence and all of these things that they did 35, 40 years ago. And seeing it recreated and kind of updated and stylized in different ways. And how do you feel about seeing the end product up there on the screen? And have you heard from the creators of the original films as to what their thoughts were?
It's interesting because the first time I saw it was at the New York premiere. Jason did show me early on some rough cuts, but that was early. I think it was in December 2019. But seeing the finished film for the first time was actually at the premiere. And I noticed for myself that I'm too close to it. It's still too fresh, where everything, I should have done this, I should have changed maybe that, or should have tweaked that. So it took me a few days. Then I saw it again on my own, just with a regular audience. That helped. Because I could see like the reactions.
You're absorbing the energy from. You're not looking at it with a quality control eye anymore. You're getting the energy from the people that are seeing it. Sure.
And seeing some of the reactions, I can say now, okay, this. I think we did okay. I think we did what we needed to do. And as when it comes to the original guys, I have not heard from or spoken to them. I doubt they know who I am.
No.
But Randy Cook did come out, and we have actually yesterday we emailed again, and to have his blessing means a lot.
Wow.
I mean, thinking back, going through all the years when I was a kid, through all the making off photos. I mean, I had the Kenner toys. Little did I know, what was going to come in. It was actually going to do the true third or fourth film. So yeah,
getting to play in that sandbox all those years later.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Arian. I could bend your ear for another hour, but I want to have I want you to have your day off. Please get some rest. But maybe we can have you back on again for a follow-up to talk about some more stuff.
Absolutely. Any questions you have, and I'll be honored to come back.
Awesome. Thanks, Arian.
You're welcome.